Last time I used Blender was 2 years ago. Do I know how to use Blender? No. But do you consider these places extremely cool? Me too. All of them were made by a real person somewhere, and it's so interesting to think about it like that. I really like the feeling you get by looking at these images. Because I tried making one myself, from scratch, in Blender. I wrote down some things that I associate with the dreamy feelings and worked with them to create a general idea for a scene.
Yeah, that's all I got for now.
From what I know, you should always delete the default cube. Great, let's add it back now. First thing first, I needed a sky, so I followed the tutorial and found a nice sky map on Polyhaven. So you go world, environmental image and select the sky map. Where is my cube? Why is this pink? Turned out I just had to wait a moment and the sky came on. Nice. That was simple enough. Next, I got into making the road, or one piece of the road. I found a texture I liked on BlendKit and dragged it onto the, well, rectangle. At the moment, I was thinking of how it would work. I cannot extend this cuboid many times to create a simple road. That's too complicated. Also, how the texturing work? Wouldn't it stretch or something?
I just want to plug this in so I can draw you the animations, but look what I did. That's intelligent, yeah.
I wanted to go a certain way, twisting and turning. I don't know, wouldn't it be maybe a wise idea to watch a tutorial to know how basic stuff works in Blender? No. Okay, so this guy, thank you Ryan, said to use a path and an array. First I added the array modifier to the road, which creates copies of the same object and places them in front of each other, if I understand it right. You can have as many as you want. Then I added the path, which I dragged out and created new points, creating a path. It automatically curves around the points like an easing function, so it should look like a real road. Once I added the curve modifier to the road, I could select the path as the curve guidance and the road with its copies from the array now stick to it. It was a little blocky at first, but by dividing the base road piece into many parts allowed it to curve smoothly. Now I could shape the road however I want it, and the texture stays intact because the object isn't stretching, right? It's being copied over and over again. I messed with this for some time, trying different textures and different paths, and for now I ended up with this. I was starting to like how it looks. It was already looking decent for how simple it was. Next thing on the list was grass. I wanted grass alongside of the road from both sides. I wanted to feel like it's sitting on something, that it's not just a plain road flying midair. Because I know how to create grass, I immediately, following the tutorial, cube, make it look like grass and add a hair particle system. This variable makes the hairs randomly curved on the end, which makes it look similar to grass strands. To achieve a realistic look, you need around 40,000 of them on this scale. You can imagine how taxing this can be already on its own, not spanning across the whole road 2 times. Yeah, whatever I tried, it was either my computer is going to explode or there is too high of a similarity to my hair. Most of the tutorials on YouTube have the same exact steps and I wasn't really sure what to do. I tried this other method that makes a plane to have many small spikes, which too looks similar to grass, but same problem. I was, and I still am, convinced that there is a way to do this properly, but what I ended up doing was using the hairs method, but made the number of hairs bigger just for when it's time to render. The recordings alone of me trying to make grass are 196 minutes long. Next, I wanted to add some clouds to the scene. I like that one type called cumulonimbus? I don't know. I was thinking of 2 options, either find a sky map that has a layer of clouds under, or model my own. The problem with the first option is the fact that it can never look as if the clouds are right under the road. Here's what I mean, just look. The second option went similar to the first one. But I found a solution. I got the idea to create a large plane behind the scene with an image texture of clouds. I could just point the camera in a certain angle, filling the whole frame afterwards. I also accidentally figured out that you could use any picture for the sky. It will be weirdly stretched, but it doesn't have to be a sky map. For the scene, it doesn't look good, but I noticed that it makes the overall lighting same as the picture of the clouds. So I kept that as my sky map. It didn't matter because I would have the plane as background anyway, right? In spaces like this, I really like how certain symbols play a role. In my opinion, it adds a lot to the atmosphere. The best way to add something like this was by adding a traffic sign. I made a simple design with a cylinder as the pillar and gradually used a plane as the actual sign. Now I needed a design to put on the triangle. I don't know if you can draw right inside Blender, but I ended up using a drawing program called Krita with the intention of wrapping the drawing on the sign later. For this exact scene, I thought yellow and black would make for the best colors. For the actual design, I wanted to recreate this slope warning sign in kind of disturbing style. Something that at the same time feels scary and calming, if you know what I mean. I think it turned out pretty good. Then I took some sweet time placing it onto the triangle. Texture for the pillar was pretty easy to do. I just made it gray and increased the metallic value so it's a little more shiny. Now it was basically time to render. It would be interesting to animate it as like some walking movement, but I thought that it would be a little over the top of my abilities, so for now I just wanted to render a still scene. I would guess you position the camera on what you want to render and then render it somehow. I found a nice angle and just pressed render. Thought it would be more complicated than that, but okay, I'm not complaining. It took me like an hour and a few render crashes to realize something might be slightly wrong. I tried lowering the rendering samples 2 times. What are rendering samples? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, what ended up working was lowering the amount of hairs on my beloved grass. It looks horrible. You know, I don't even like grass. What has grass ever done for me? So this is my creation. At start, I made a list of objects I find liminal, or how do you call it, dreamy. I completely forgot about the wind turbine, which could make the scene a little bit less empty, right, Grass? I found some pictures for reference and tried to model one. I couldn't really figure out what to do when I was starting, but I've seen people putting planes with images right inside Blender and using that as a reference so they can get the proportions right. What did I do? Yeah, just exactly that. I modeled the whole blade like a professional, duplicated it, and rotated each duplicated one by 120 degrees. I was able to model it pretty good, I think, but I couldn't get the texturing right. Whenever I tried adding a texture, it did not look good because it would either repeat itself, creating an ugly repetitive pattern, or it would be too zoomed in, making it low quality and, too zoomed in. It just didn't fit for what I was going for, but it was still fun to do. I do consider this as the finished product without the turbine. Yes, it's a bit simple, but it still looks good. I really like how the sign turned out. Okay, bye.